Hello, this is my first time doing a Commander deck tech video, and I wanted to show off my Burakos Haunted One Commander deck. This is a background pairing with Burakos Party Leader, who is a Cleric, Rogue, Warrior, and Wizard, in addition to being his normal creature type of Orc. And when he attacks, defending player loses X life, and you make X treasure tokens, where X is the number of creatures in your party. And Haunted One states that whenever your commander becomes tapped, it and other creatures you control that share a creature type get +2/+0 and gained Undying until end of turn. While having the party mechanic is helpful, what we're mostly focused on is him being a cleric, because this deck is a Shadowborn Apostle deck, and I'll get to the rest of that in a sec. Our main goal is to ultimately combo out by tapping Burakos, sacrificing him to get the Undying trigger from the Haunted One, and then finding ways to remove counters, retap Burakos, and keep going through that loop over and over again. This will become easier to show as I go through the rest of the deck, but I'm going to put these two off to the side for now, and we'll get to the meat and potatoes. So we run 26 Shadowborn Apostles, 25 or 26. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. So we're running 26 Shadowborn Apostles. One of the nice things about doing a Shadowborn strategy with this is if we do get the Undying from our commander and our background, when we go to sacrifice the Shadowborn Apostles, they will come back as a result. Not necessarily just sacrifice to get more demons, but it gives us more tools to use once we get what we're trying to find. The one demon that we are trying to look for is Razaketh, the Foul-Blooded. He will let us find the rest of the pieces for our combo. It's a pretty mana-intensive and involved combo, but it does work, and there are a couple of pieces of redundancy. So we're mainly sacrificing the Apostles to find Razaketh, and then when they come back, because of the Undying, we can use our pay 2 life to sacrifice and tutor with the Apostles that came back. So it lets us essentially, at most, get 6 additional tutors. I'll get to the combos in a sec, but let's just start with mana ramp. First, we have Dark Ritual and Culling the Weak. These are very, very efficient. Culling the Weak, we don't really care if we lose an Apostle. Sometimes we don't even have 6 in order to sacrifice. And we don't need them necessarily to get to our combo. It's just another way to help push out our commander. Our commander is going to be able to give us the resiliency as well as other ramp later on. Jewelry Amulet is really nice. It's just turn 1, add a counter. If we can get our commander out on turn 3, that's very, very useful. So anything we can to push our way to 4 mana. Soul Ring, Paradise Mantle is useful. We can equip it to an Apostle to ramp early on, or we can equip it to our commander in order to tap him and help with the granting Undying. Springleaf Drum, same thing. We can tap an Apostle for early mana ramp, or tap our commander to grant Undying. Arcane Signet, Jet Medallion. Priest of Forgotten Gods helps us in a few different ways. We can ramp, draw cards, have our opponent sacrifice a creature. It usually gets killed pretty quickly because it is so one-sided, but it is a really good card. Priest of Gix is interesting. It's not necessarily going to ramp us by itself. It works well with other pieces that I can show in a sec. It has been erratated to say Cleric, so it does work with the Undying from Burakos. If we do have a way to sacrifice it, then we can bring it back, get that 3 mana, and keep going with other ways. All right. I'll put these off to the side. Next, we have our card draw pieces. Scroll Clamp is an auto include just because all of our clerics are 1/1s. And we can just, for 1 mana, draw 2 cards. Dark Confidant is nice, just an extra card draw each turn, and our mana curve is so low, it's not really much life loss, just so long as we don't hit Razaketh. And because it's a wizard, it will help with Burakos' second ability, which will allow us to get an extra treasure when he attacks. Deadly Dispute, again, just sacrifice a creature or artifact, draw 2 cards, and then we make a treasure token. So it can help us with ramp. It does help us with drawing cards. If we want to keep an Apostle and we have Burakos out to make treasure tokens, we can sacrifice the treasure token in order to draw 2 cards. Gix, another great card draw piece. It also helps our opponents not attack us, but because we're playing so many early 1-drops, having this out on turn 3 it's just nice. It just turns into a really great card draw. Black Market Connection is good. We don't necessarily want to have it be using all the modes all the time. Once we create the 3/2 Shapeshifter, if we have more than 2, it doesn't really get us any more treasures from Burakos. The drawing a card is useful, and creating a treasure token is somewhat useful, but mainly it's just a utilitarian. It serves a lot of different purposes. Disciple of Bolas is great. We can use it to sacrifice our commander or Shadowborn Apostle. Because Haunted One grants +2/+0, at minimum this is going to have us drawing 3 cards from an Apostle or 2 cards from Burakos, but we really want to be using this once we have Burakos out to get the sacrifice and to get the Undying, so that when we sacrifice, whatever we sacrifice comes back, and then we can draw cards, and then we can sacrifice Disciple later on, have that come back, because Burakos also has the type of wizard. We can use Scroll Clamp to kill the Disciple. We have other lands that will let us do this. So it's just a very nice way for us to draw cards. After our card draw, we have a couple of different tutors. Expedition Map helps us find a few useful lands. I think we have 3 non-basic lands. Diabolic Intent, we can, again, sacrifice a creature, search for a card. Beseech the Mirror is nice if we want to... we're going to be making treasure tokens with Burakos. So usually we can put the card we find into play, or if we need to find something else, we can find something else. But it is a very, very nice tutor for this deck. We're not running stuff like Vampiric Tutor and Imperial Seal. It's not the type of deck that we want to play. It can be a little bit strong from a bracket 3 point, but if you're playing against bracket 4s, it tends not to hold up. So let's go on to some of our removal. The first removal piece we have is Feed the Swarm. Just very simple, easy. Destroy target creature or enchantment. There's not much enchantment removal in black, so it's a very nice card to have. Pile-on and Lethal Scheme are essentially the same card, but they allow us to tap our creatures to pay for the cost, which is useful for granting that Undying, the +2/+0. If someone's playing a board wipe, we can play Pile-on or Lethal Scheme with our commander and background out, so that we can give our creatures the Undying to survive the board wipe. We can take out Planeswalkers. Lethal Scheme lets us draw, and Pile-on lets us surveil, which is a pseudo draw for us, because again, we're looking for very specific pieces in order to complete our combo line. Next, we have a couple of board wipes. The first one is Black Sun Zenith. This lets us reset our 1/1 counters, so we can keep going through the end using our Undying ability. And then Meat Hook Massacre. There are better things we can be doing in terms of a board wipe, but this serves a secondary purpose of whenever a creature we control dies, each opponent loses 1 life. This will become relevant once we start setting up our sacrifice loops with Burakos to be able to drain our opponents and win the game. After this, we have our combo packages. So the 2 main pieces are Unaworn Shaku and Relic of Legends. So the Shaku and the Legends will let us tap our, for this purposes, Burakos, tap our legendary creature, which is Burakos, to re-grant the Undying to all of our creatures. So when Burakos dies and comes back from the Undying ability, we can re-give him Undying, and we'll be able to then later on remove the counters in order to keep going through these loops. And I'll explain that in a sec. So I'll put this over here for now. Our payoff, besides the Meat Hook Massacre, is mainly going to be Relic Vial, which will always drain our opponents for 1 and gain us 1 life. And then Zulaport Cutthroat, which also serves to increase our party count, as well as the drain. Our main ways for removing counters are Retribution of the Ancient, as well as Yawgmoth Thran Physician. Yawgmoth Thran Physician also serves as a sacrifice outlet. Our combo involves any of the following pieces, either Relic of Legends, Unaworn Shaku, one of these, Relic Vial, Zulaport Cutthroat, and then either Yawgmoth or Retribution of the Ancients and Viscera Seer. If we have Retribution of the Ancients, we are going to need the Relic of Legends in order to produce the black mana. The Shaku will not be able to help us with this. We need the black mana in order to remove the 1/1 counters that are given from the Undying trigger, so that when we re-sacrifice to Viscera Seer, we can regain, we can have the creature come back with 1/1. So I'll explain this loop a little more clearly in a sec. Okay, so next we have Thrumming Stone, which is arguably not quite what we want to be doing with 26 Shadowborn Apostles, but it is still useful with getting us to critical mass where we can start sacrificing the Apostle in order to get to the Razaketh. Sometimes we whiff, but generally I found it's a risk we're willing to take, because when it does tend to work more often than not, and by the time we get it out, we've gone through enough of the deck that it tends to be okay. Next we have Secret Salvage and Defiler of Flesh. These 2 need to work together. Secret Salvage is nice in that if we sacrifice an Apostle either to, and I'll show this later, Phyrexian Tower, or to a Skull Clamp to draw cards, or it's served as a blocker, or sacrifice fodder for any of our other sacrifice effects, we can use Secret Salvage to get all the Shadowborn Apostles from our deck into our hand. Again, we don't care necessarily about the Shadowborn Apostles being in play. They are not our win con. They only serve as a way to get to our win con. The Defiler of Flesh lets us, instead of casting them by paying mana, we can then pay 2 life and then put the Shadowborn Apostles into play. Hoarding Broodlord and Saw in Half are our next combo line. The Broodlord helps us with tapping Burakos, which is useful. If we need to grant Undying and then find a tutor or find a Yawgmoth, we can do that. But if we're not ready to get there, we can use the Broodlord to find Saw in Half, and then Saw in Half the Broodlord to get 2 copies. That will then get us Sacrifice, and then maybe we can also go for Razaketh as well. We'll be able to sacrifice one of the Hoarding Broodlords, play the Razaketh, and then use the other Broodlord copy from the Saw in Half to start tutoring and finding the pieces we need in order to win. There's just many different ways we can move forward from here. One of the things about this deck is we're not trying to find one version of anything. There's multiple versions of things, and they're all in here to work together in order to advance us towards comboing off with Burakos. But yeah, that's the other main way we can find a win. Put that here. Next, we have some of our utility lands. We have Phyrexian Tower, just ramp pieces. Again, if we lose an Apostle, that's fine. We'll find ways to either draw into more or tutors or other things. Mainly, we want to get our commander out. Once we get our commander out, it'll help us advance much faster. Soothsayer serves as another way to tap Burakos as well as card draw, and then Nykthos is more ramp. Sometimes you just need to generate more mana. This deck is pretty mana intensive, despite having so many 1/1s, but we do need to have those 1/1s into play, or if we have Razaketh in our hand, we do need to be able to play Razaketh. So these 3 cards are the reason why Expedition Map is in the deck. Beyond that, all we have are a bunch of swamps, and I think it's 31 swamps, so we run 34 lands, which you can argue it's on the low side, but we're really trying to get only 4 lands, maybe 5. We need to get Burakos out, and Burakos can help push us towards more mana. He's going to generate 2 treasures a turn usually, so once we get to our required amount to get both our commander and background out, we're usually good to go. Okay, now that we're back, I'm going to explain a little bit how the combo is supposed to work. We need a lot of pieces in order for it to work, which is why Razaketh is our only demon. Having the ability to tutor for 5 or 6 things in order to be able to assemble our combo is useful. But for any variation, we both need our background and Burakos. So once we have both of those out, the next thing we're going to need is one other creature. The reason we, not always, but for the Yawgmoth, it's good to have the one other creature. If we use the Retribution of the Ancients, we don't need to run other creature, but for demonstration purposes and making it a little bit easier, I am going to use Yawgmoth. So once we have our 2 creatures, Commander, our Shadowborn Apostle, and Yawgmoth, we're going to need either Relic of Legends or Unaworn Shaku. I'll use Unaworn Shaku. And then we're going to need Zulaport Cutthroat or Relic of Legends, and I'll use the Cutthroat. So the way the combo is going to end up working is it doesn't matter if Unaworn Shaku is tapped or untapped. We can always just tap Burakos to untap it. We can tap it to add mana. It'll be all okay. So when we tap Burakos, we give all of our creatures Undying. We're going to then sacrifice the Shadowborn Apostle to put a -1/-1 counter on Burakos. I'm not going to show it right now. It's not going to make a difference, but just imagine there's a -1/-1 counter on Burakos. This will lose a life from the Yawgmoth, but the Zulaport Cutthroat is going to gain us a life back, so it'll all even out. We'll just draw a card. There is a limit to this combo of we need to have more cards in our library than our opponent does in life. Otherwise, we're going to deck ourselves before we can kill them. So once we have the Shadowborn Apostle with the 1/1 counter, and Burakos is tapped and still hasn't died, we can then sacrifice Burakos, target the Shadowborn Apostle. The -1/-1 counter is going to cancel out the +1/+1 on the Shadowborn Apostle, and then Burakos is going to have a 1/1 counter when he re-enters. Now, the Shadowborn Apostle and Burakos no longer have Undying, since when it was tapped, they both have died and re-entered, so they're new creatures in play. So what we do is we can tap Burakos to the Shaku again, to untap the Shaku, re-give Undying to everything, and then we'll just go through the loop again. So we'll sacrifice the Shadowborn Apostle, target Burakos with the Yawgmoth trigger, Yawgmoth effect. The 1/1, the -1/-1 counter, and the +1/+1 counter will cancel out on this creature, and then this Shadowborn Apostle will have another 1/1 counter. And so we're at the state where we were before we sacrificed Burakos and it came in with the 1/1 counter. And so we can just keep going through this over and over again. I'll set up the other way we can get there. Just a different way. This one is a little bit, we don't need to be able to gain life with this version, but we can't use the Shaku. We will have to use the Relic of Legends because we are going to need black mana in order to make this work. So with this version, we can use the Relic Vial, we can use the Zulaport Cutthroat, or we can even use the Meat Hook Massacre, because all we care about is our opponents losing life. Okay, so for this purpose, let's use the Meat Hook Massacre. And what we're going to do is tap Burakos to give Undying and +2/+0. We're going to sacrifice Burakos to Viserys here to Surveil. It will enter with a 1/1 counter. Now, we're going to use that black mana that we got from the Relic of Legends to activate Retribution of the Ancients, and we can target our own commander. It doesn't matter if our opponents have creatures. We're just going to remove the counter, give Burakos -1/-1 until end of turn. It's not going to kill him, and he's going to die pretty quickly anyways. So now that the counter is removed, we can tap Burakos again, generate a black mana, sacrifice him to scry 1, and then he's going to re-enter again with a 1/1 counter, and with that black mana we can remove it. Each time this happens, because of Meat Hook Massacre, our opponent's going to lose 1 life, and we'll just keep doing this until they're dead. And again, we can replace this with Cutthroat, with Relic Vial, it doesn't matter. This one is it's less mana intensive, but we do need the Relic of Legends in order to do it. So now that I've explained the main game plan of the deck, let's assume that everything has gone horribly wrong. Well, then we can just start attacking with Burakos, because our creatures will get +2/+0 until end of turn. And worst case scenario, we just start swinging in and trying to attack with a bunch of 3/1s, or potentially even bigger if we were able to tap Burakos multiple times in the same turn, because this effect will stack. If you have any questions, ideas, or recommendations, feel free to share them in the comments, but this is just something I've been working on for a while, and I hope you've enjoyed it.